My name is Ben Frost. I'm the Global Product Manager at Hay Group for all of our reward information products, PayNet obviously being the major one of those. I'm based out of our London office where it's getting quite dark out the window now. So before I start, I just want to say thanks for taking time out of your day to join us today and hear about the changes that we have upcoming over this weekend. We're certainly pretty excited about the new release. So let me just briefly talk about what I'm going to talk about, as Kayla said, for about 30 minutes or so, and then leaving plenty of time for questions. If you don't have questions, we can all get finished up early. So I'm going to talk about the new updates, specifically what we've aimed to do when refreshing PayNet and with this release that's coming up this weekend. I'll give you a preview of the new site. I'll show you some screenshots on some slides and actually possibly go live onto the site in development for a few minutes to give you a bit of a look around at some key screens. We'll talk about access to the new site, so what you will need to do to get access, when that will come, and when it will be available to you, and say what if anything you'll need to do. And then just one slide, just as a sort of recap on why PayNet is the world's leading reward database. So before we will start to show you screens, I think let me start at the beginning. So over the weekend, we'll be launching the new site, and what we've tried to do are really three things. Firstly, to make it easier to use, and we know that most of you, when you log into PayNet, what you're trying to do is get market data either from a database or from a report. So one thing we need to do is make that easier for you to find the database or the report that you need. So we've done that by redesigning the home page, making the databases and reports far more prominent than they've ever been before, and making the information that we know our users want to go straight to, making that much more prominent and much easier to find. So as well as being easier, and you'll find that we've made design changes all the way through the site aimed at making it more intuitive, more obvious to know what you're supposed to do next. Lighting up buttons when they're available to be clicked and graying them out when they're not, that kind of thing. So generally we've had a big focus on being easy and intuitive to use. But secondly, also speed, and there are a couple of things around speed I want to talk about. In the past, we've made you go through sort of 5 or 6 screens once you're in the database to build a query, and we think that's at least 2 or 3 too many. So we've redesigned things, and you can now build a database query and see the results in 3 screens at most. Actually, some queries you can even get there quicker in just 2 screens. And then, so as well as getting you through the query much quicker and getting you to the result far more quickly, we've also done some work on the back end, which hopefully you'll see from Monday, that the actual processing time and the time that the system is away thinking before it brings back a query result has been dramatically cut. So even some of the largest queries are taking much less time to run and putting that result on your screen much more quickly, which we know is not a lot of people are interested in it taking longer to give a result. And then simpler, and it links really to the ease of use and intuitiveness, and also speed of getting through and building a query. What we've done is dramatically expanded the preferences screen in the tool. So we know that actually in the current tool, we ask you to make a lot of choices, and we ask you to make a lot of choices for every query. So a very good example of that is the approach, the analysis approach that you want to use. So do you want to use job pricing, job mapping, or do you want to use a grade analysis? Now, we know from talking to many of our users that actually a lot of people use the same approach all the time. So if you're a company that is interested in looking at the market via job pricing will, 99% of the time you'll be using job pricing as your approach in PayNet. So, a good question that we ask ourselves is, why do we make you say that every time? And it's 2 clicks, one to choose it, and the other to click next, and then wait while the next page loads. So we've put some of those choices, things like company versus incumbent weighting, the analysis approach. Do you want to use common company data? Do you want to use Hay reference levels or your own custom grades? Those kind of choices that tend not to vary. You tend to want to do things the same way most of the time. We put those choices into a preferences screen. So you can set those one time and you would never need to make that choice on a query by query basis. So that's part of how we can reduce the number of screens as well, because we've taken a lot of choices out on a query by query basis, which means that we've got fewer questions that we need to ask you each time, and we can fit those questions onto fewer screens. So, and all of that also then hopefully contributes to the new tool being easier to use. So all of those objectives kind of fit together, we hope, to deliver something that is significantly easier than what you've seen in the past. Okay, well that's enough about talking about what we've tried to do. Our development team are of course working on the site now. I'm going to go live at least for the first couple of pages. I actually can't get all the way through and run a query at the moment because a few pages are being worked on. But you see the new login page, and hopefully by now everybody can see my web browser. So you see the new login page, and I've put my password in there. So I'm just going to show you a couple of screens, and then we'll look at a couple more via screenshots. So having entered my password, we come to the home page, and it's organised around a simple principle of what you want to do in PayNet. We know that most people log into PayNet to get data access, either by a database or a report. So all of our databases collected together in a column there on the left. And so if you want to price jobs in one country, so if you just want to run a query on the US database, those databases are all collected together on the left. In the middle, we have pricing jobs across a number of countries at once. And if you subscribe to our PayNet International tool, which has cross-country query capability, then that middle column is where you would access that. And then on the right-hand side, view reports. Our static reports that we publish through PayNet, all those reports collected together for all countries in that one column. So if I compare that, and I'm not going to show you the current site, but if I compare that to the current site, half of that home page on the current site is taken up with announcements and notifications, saved queries, and deferred queries. So we've really tried to make the database and report access a whole lot more prominent than that has ever been before. Your saved and deferred queries and announcements or notifications are there towards the top right. So they're still there. You see the tick with, in my case, 9 queries. So those are all of my saved and deferred queries in one screen from where we can access those. And then announcements about things like databases being refreshed or things being updated are there in that notification section, so the 10 notifications. So that part used to be half the screen, and is now 2 small buttons, which allows us to use much more of the screen space on the stuff that you actually log into PayNet for, the databases and the reports. One other link to call out just at the top there is preferences. So I mentioned that we're putting a lot more into that preferences screen, and I'll show you that in a minute. So the way that you find a database, choose your country, everything organised by country in alphabetical order. You see United States core data is the one that I'm going to go into, and you saw that when I clicked on that, the button lit up to define my market, because that's now possible. So we're going to walk through, and you see the next screen is the define market screen, and that is reasonably familiar. We're moving from a sort of selection box to check boxes, make it easier to see what you've selected and what you haven't. And we'll go on to the next screen. And so, if you want to run a grade analysis, these are actually the only 2 screens that you would need to see. You would define your market, and you then come onto this screen for what we call job families and the analysis details. So this is where you would choose, for example, which families you want to look at, and I'll go to an example there and just pick, for example, finance and HR. I'm not actually going to run this query, but I'll give you an example of what that functionality looks like. I'll choose my comp elements for the analysis as well. And then down on the bottom right of the screen, you see a couple of choices there, and I'm just going to pull those up and show you what they are. So you can see that I've set my default, what we call the PayNet method, which used to be called the approach. So my default approach to running analysis is to use a grade analysis, and that is set in my preferences. So if I want to run a grade analysis this time, I need to do nothing. I need to either select generate results or select jobs if I want to drill into those families and price just specific jobs. And further, when I run queries using grade analysis, I want to get my results back organized by Hay Group reference levels rather than custom grading structure. So I've set that in preferences, and again, if I just want to do it my normal way, I don't need to make that choice every time. I can just go right to the generate results button, and the next screen I would see would be the results screen. If I do want to make a change on a query by query basis, you see the edit function, and you see a window that pops up there which will allow me to change that. So let's say that now, today, I want to run a job pricing instead of grade analysis. So I can make that choice and just click the update button, and you see that would be reflected on the screen. And I can then go into select jobs or onto the generate results screen. So I'm just going to go back to screenshots for a minute or two, and let me just find the next screenshot that I want to show. So, having set that query up with those two screens, if I've gone into the job matrix, the job matrix will be fairly familiar to anyone that's sort of used PayNet in the past. And as you'd expect, on each of those job titles, you see a job description in the background. So you choose your jobs, you can view job descriptions, and you go to generate results when you're ready to do that. And so the results screen, again, I sort of cleaned up and refreshed the look for the results screen, but of course the guts of the result, will be the same databases and the same results that you would be used to. So you see the main body of the result there in the middle of the screen, and the set of buttons that are called out in red there with a bit of red highlighting. You have buttons to toggle to view the analysis criteria, to adjust the results, so to do any of the adding or subtracting a percentage, changing the currency, creating a custom percentile or comparing to a salary value that you enter. And then also the export options, so the few export functions that are there. And then actually in a row above that, you see again links to see participant reports, market context, batching of various queries together, and then the save query option there. So that's the results screen. And then on preferences, and don't worry too much about the screen format here, I said that lots of additional choices had been moved up into preferences. So all that had really been in preferences up until now is changing your password, changing your language that you want to see the tool in, and setting up custom grade sets. So you can see, if you have your screen maximized, you can see a number of additional choices there. So do you want to use common company data? Do you want to weight by company, by incumbent? And that all important, what is your preferred approach to running an analysis in PayNet? So again, you make that choice one time. As I've shown you, you would see that choice on a query by query basis. You can edit it on a query by query basis. But if you just want to run things your normal way, you're good to go. There's nothing to do. So, in summary, what hopefully you've sort of picked up from that look so far, the homepage updated and is clearer, and also gives more prominence to the stuff that we know most people are logging into PayNet to try and get, which is the databases and the report access. So calling those out much more strongly, making them much more prominent, and hopefully quicker, easier to access. Preferences in one place, and more ability to set preferences, which the more you can set in preferences one time, that means obviously the less that you have to choose on a query by query basis. So fewer questions to answer each time you want to run a query. Easy navigation through the query screens, and completing a query in 3 screens, or actually, if you want a grade analysis, or if you want to use complete job families, actually just 2 screens to get to a result, and then that clearer results page with all the functionality that you've been used to in the past. So some logistics. I mean, the key sort of dates to remember is September 15th, which is this Sunday, when hopefully most of you will be nowhere near PayNet and enjoying the weekend. So your subscription automatically gets switched over to the new site. You need to do nothing. Actually, on Saturday, the site will be down for about 4 hours from around 9 a.m. US Eastern Time, while our technical team make the updates to put the new site live. So, as I said, all of your username and password, the web address, all stay exactly the same, and all of your database and report access, all of your saved queries, and all of your preferences that you had already set automatically get migrated across to the new site. So you'll log in on Monday, and all of your stuff will still be there. So. Say the logistics and what you need to do to get access, actually nothing. Enjoy the weekend, we'll do all that for you, and when you come in on Monday, it will be there for you. Okay, so before we open up for questions, I mean, I think PayNet is just one, the functionality of the site is obviously just one part of the value proposition and what we think is good about PayNet. And the other things are here. A good website that's easy to use is obviously one part of the puzzle, but without the right data, without the quality of data in terms of the depth and the breadth of coverage, we can have the best tool in the world, but without good data to access through that tool, it's only half the picture. So, and we think, and of course, I would say this, being horribly biased as a product manager for PayNet, and I think we've got data that stand up there with absolutely anybody in the world. So the data depth and integrity is there, the simplicity, and hopefully this change to PayNet makes that even more simple and gives you 24/7 access to get at that data whenever you need to. Our methodologies in the background and the systems and tools and processes that we're using, from our job mapping methodology to our benefit valuation methodology, mean that the stuff that's under the hood is also world leading and world class. And then actually something that we pride ourselves on as well is our support on the ground. Particularly for those of you that access data internationally, you'll know that in each of those countries where we collect data, we have employees, full-time employees that work for us, whose full-time job it is to collect data and understand the reward market in each of those countries, which actually sets us apart from many. And it's a deliberate choice we've made, but as well as getting the data, you can also tap into people that know and understand the data and can help explain that to you. So hopefully all that puts the update to the site is just one part of the puzzle, and obviously we're not just working on the site, but we're working on all those other parts of the puzzle as well. Okay, that's an annoying piece of text wrapping on my email address there. But so that's I'm very happy for anybody to kind of get in touch directly, or of course your normal Hay Group contact, your normal local account manager, wherever you may be, is also you normally would be your first point of contact, but you also have my details there if you want to make contact. And given the number of people on this webinar, I guarantee that I will reply within 5 minutes, because if you all start contacting me, that might be a busy inbox. Okay, so if you want to submit questions, you can do that through the chat function, which should be towards the bottom left of your screen. We've had quite a few already, so I'm just going to start at the top, and we will. So a couple of things to say to answer a couple of sort of quite common questions. There will be a recording of this webinar available. It's being recorded. We'll put that recording up online, and we'll give you access to that recording. So you'll be able to view and listen to it on the web. So if you have colleagues that couldn't make it today or anything else, then you'll be able to come back to this recording. And then, of course, if you have questions, if you think of questions after you hang up, of course, your normal account manager will be able to help you. So, first question: which browsers are supported? PayNet really works in any browser. The two that we've really been optimizing for are Chrome, which is now the most used browser in the world, and Internet Explorer, which is now has always been the sort of most used browser for corporate or enterprise users. Although Chrome is actually catching up fast, and it won't be long before the majority of visits to PayNet are coming from Chrome. So we've been optimizing for Internet Explorer and Chrome. I'd say you probably get the best experience in Chrome, but it would work with any browser. To prove that, I was actually just looking at the test site on my iPad earlier today. So it works on mobile and tablet and Safari as well. Can I receive a copy of the slide presentation? Absolutely, yes. Okay, one question on the industries, or the option where you choose the market. Looks like it's changed. It just showed FMCG versus FMCG industrial, like I currently see. So, probably the thing to say there is I was looking at what we call our US international database, rather than the US exec managerial professional database. So our product PayNet International has a consistent list of sectors, industries available in every country. And so the FMCG sector is one of those. And so I was looking at the sort of international version of the US database. Had I been in exec managerial professional, you would have, nothing has changed about the actual databases themselves or the sectors that we cover. So had I been an exec managerial professional, you would have seen what you would normally see there. Is there a way to pull multiple jobs at multiple levels and receive separate outputs for each one? Currently, all selected jobs get rolled up into one large job, so is there an easy way to pull multiple jobs? The short answer to that is yes, there is. There's a function where, for example, if you choose a whole job family, or even all job families together, you can choose to get results by, for example, by job. So if we have 3,000 jobs in our database, it would give you essentially one line of data for each job. By default, that option is not switched on, but if you contact your account manager, they can get that option switched on for you. And again, if you look at job family markets, job family grade analysis markets, and you look at the market by function, and you don't want to run 20, 30, 50 functional markets, again, there's an option that will essentially break out an all jobs query into each of the functional markets. So you can either get things by job, by function, or by sort of sub-function. So the obvious sub-function familiar to most of you will be the comp and ben sub-function. Again, a similar question: can those who use the data without using grades get a flat file for all jobs, similar to what you can get from other survey companies? So exactly the same answer there. Yes, there's a function that can allow you to generate exactly that kind of output. As I say, by default, not switched on, but your account manager can switch it on also at no charge if you drop them an email. I'm sure my colleagues will be thanking me for that now, but they'll be getting lots of emails in their inbox. let me see more questions. So, which screen can we select the peer group? That is on the defined market screen, and it's actually, I mean, if you're familiar with where to select a peer group now, actually, why don't I just show you? So this is a screen that I can show you. So you can see the defined market screen. If you're familiar with how this screen looks now, peer groups are on the left, and the standard market functions are on the right. Now you see the standard selectors at the top and the peer group at the bottom. So the pull down menu there is saying or select a predefined market or peer group. So you can choose whichever peer group you have active to run the query on. So on the defined market screen. Are there any changes to result printing options? That's a good question. Not as far as I know. Of course, there's always an option to just file print from your browser. You'll get a better experience. I mean, actually, if the objective is to print results, to have those kind of look good and to put them onto a manager's desk, probably actually the best option is to download or, for example, export as a PDF. And the PDF exports are designed to be sort of print quality. So actually, if you want something that's sort of pixel perfect to give to a manager, the PDF option is, and then printing from there is actually probably the best to go for. You can of course file print, but like printing from any website, how that comes out will depend a lot on your screen resolution, what browser you're looking at, what screen size, for example. So it can be slightly variable. That's true with any website. Previously for results, I can choose if I want the percentiles to show across the columns or down the rows. Is that still possible? Yeah, absolutely. So that functionality is exactly still there, and you can set that as a preference as well. So if you're finding that you had to actually make a choice there, you don't have to make a choice anymore. You can set it one time up in preferences, and all of your queries will run that way. Are there going to be training materials provided after the call to assist with navigation once the new system goes live? So that's already been answered to the person that asked it, but I'll answer it for everyone's benefit. So there'll be a recording of this webinar. You can of course ask your account manager, and then not for Monday, but in the near future we'll be making a few training sort of videos. Not like a whole hour demo clicking on every button and going to every screen, but more focused on how you would log in, choose a database, run a job pricing query, see the results, interact with those results a little bit, and export or print those out. So very sort of task focused, and we're as soon as we go live on Monday, we'll start working on some very task focused training videos to go onto the site. Next question, is the appendix still available? So I guess what we call the analysis criteria, so see the summary of the data that's been extracted. Yes, it is, and I'll show you the screen. I'll show you back on the results screen. So actually it's called out in that red highlighted bit there. The screen doesn't actually appear red, that's my highlighting on the slide. You can see view analysis criteria, which if you think like a sort of a little drop down, a little expand menu. So if you click that view analysis criteria button on any result, it will expand out a recap of the criteria there. Is there a way to download an entire report into Excel or going using the PayNet tool? Well, so I mean, as I mentioned before, the bulk extract functionality is the obvious way to do that. And of course, if what you want for your Comp analysis tool is an Excel spreadsheet, you can get that kind of bulk download, or talk to your account manager about other ways to do that. Okay, those are, I think, all of the questions, and we'll stay on here after we actually close the meeting, and do a copy and paste of all the questions, and if there is anything that I've not answered here, I'm just going back through and oh, there's one. Okay. Can I show how to do a bulk download of US data? Yes, I can show you that. So I'm just going to share my browser again, and I'll show you the option to do that. So we've been through the defined market screen here, and we're on the screen where we select job families and analysis details. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to select the finance family, and I'm going to select base salary, total cash as my options. When this is switched on, and ignore some of this stuff here, which is just for internal Hay Group users. When this is switched on, what you see in this bottom left box, you'll see that text there. For multiple queries, bulk data extracts, please select one of the following options. So the default is that it's not going to do anything as a multiple query. It's just going to go through and run that finance and accounting family that I selected. But if we change that to job, the output, that query will defer. You'll be asked to give it a name, and it will go into your Save Query section. And then once that's done, we'll give you the option to download a CSV file, one row of data per job, with the job title, the market, and the percentiles going off in columns to the right. So as I say, a lot of you will probably log in now and say, what is that guy talking about? Because by default that is not switched on. So if you want the option of that, it's one to contact your account manager about. As I say, we don't charge for it, but yeah, you'd need to get in touch to have that part switched on. But so that's where you would do it. On the current tool for the next day or so, that box, if you have it switched on, is right next to where you select comp elements, just to the right of the comp element box. Yeah, that's where it will be in the new tool. And then, okay, I think the last question, unless there have been any new ones that I haven't answered, and one question where I'm going to send the person that asked it an email right after this and answer the question, which is, so the last one I'm going to answer, where do you see the strength of query bar? So, on the current PayNet, you see an option called Inventory Check, which gives you a red, yellow, green indication of how much data there is for the query. So are we cutting too fine and not going to get a result? It's a good spot that that's not there, and the reason it's not there is that runs automatically now in the background. So I defined my market quite broadly. I just looked at the FMCG sector, but if I looked at the FMCG sector, over 5 billion revenue, less than 100 employees in Maine. Of course, there probably aren't a lot of those. And when I click the next button to go to the next screen, that would automatically run that inventory check. And if there's not enough data to proceed, it will tell me. It gives me a message and tells me to expand the selection. If there is enough data to proceed, and so the inventory check is coming up as okay, it will just take me on to the next screen. So it runs automatically, which means that actually, we think that actually a lot of the time when people, on the hopefully few occasions, when people see the message that says there was not enough data available to complete the query, of course, the inventory check could possibly have told you that before you'd actually hit generate results, but it was another button to click. So a lot of people don't click it, they go through and they might see the not enough data message. So we think that because that's now baked in, it's going to run automatically when you click the next button. Far fewer people should ever see a not enough data message now. We'll catch that upstream in the process. Okay, that sparked another couple of questions. So what's considered enough data to proceed? Essentially our minimums or suppression criteria. There's one set of suppression criteria for the US and a slightly different one for the rest of the world. In the US, we need at least 4 companies in the query to give you an average and 5 for a median. So if the query or the selection that you're making is not going to return at least 4 companies, it will tell you to widen your query. And the rest of the world, actually, it's 4 for an average and 4 for a median. So the enough data is still set at 4 companies is good, 3 companies is not good, and you'll get an error message. Okay, and then one more question: is the job evaluation tool, so the questions to help you assign a Hay reference level, still available? Yes, that is still available. And I mean, yeah, I guess actually probably the short answer to any question which says, is something still available? Yeah, I mean, we've not taken any functionality away. Equally, we've not really added any functionality. But yeah, all functionality that is in the current site is there in the new site. And you can see that when you're in a job matrix, so there's a slide of a job matrix there, just under that purple button, there's a white button that says job sizing tool, and that takes you into the job sizing tool there. Okay, one final question is if one of those 4 or 5 minimum companies is your own company, does it still count? Does it still count? So yeah, your company counts as one of 4 companies that we need to give you a result. Yes. So yeah, if you're one of the 4, yeah, fine. We still give you a result. And I'd say in the US that's slightly different. You would need 5 for a median and 4 for an average. So there are very few queries where there are exactly 4 companies. You would see a market average but not a median until there's a 5th company. Okay. Questions are drying up. One more. What if your company is 25% of the data? Let me pick that one up and take that offline, and we'll get an answer to that specific one. So yeah, the questions seem to be sort of drying up, and hopefully that was useful. As I said, there will be a recording. You should hopefully know your sort of your regular account manager's contact details. So if you have sort of day-by-day questions, they're your first point of contact. And you also saw my email address there. So I mean, please feel free and reach out directly to me if you want to do that. So I mean, I'm about done talking. So the final thing to say is just again, thank you for taking the time out to learn about the enhancements. And say, I think I hope you agree, and I hope you see a significant sort of improvement in usability from the current site. So have a good weekend. We'll be working hard over the weekend, and then when you come to work on Monday, the new site will be available. Probably the first place I'd encourage you to go when you log in on Monday is to go to that Preferences tab, and say there's a lot more that you can set one time, so that you don't have to keep making choices for every query that you run. And hopefully that should be a big benefit in terms of time saving. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.